right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. As you guys get in here, I just want to welcome you. I'm Colleen from the California League of Schools. I'm acting as the MC today, but we have the fantastic ladies of Thriving University, Jessie Fuller, Joelle Hood, and we have Janeen Antonelli as well today. We're going to let a few people in, but if you want to take a few minutes and put who you are, where you're from, what you do into the chat, that's a really great tool for us to get to see who's here and what's going on and how you're doing. And I know throughout this presentation, the gals of Thriving University will have several breakout rooms and moments for you guys to really interact as participants. So we're really excited to have you there. I'm going to give a few more minutes for everyone to filter in. Well, not a few more minutes, but another minute. So just keep introducing yourself. We're really excited to have everybody here. Hanford, the Central Valley is here. I see a lot of Moreno Valley. Oh, OSHA, I see you. It's really exciting to have you all here. I'm gonna go over a few things. Number one, if everyone can mute their microphones, there are cameras and sound, so make sure you're muted. If you're having trouble, you can just raise a hand and we will take care of you. So today we are kicking off the Remote Teaching and Learning virtual conference with this session, Strategies for Successful Return Using Applied Educational Neuroscience, I'm getting it, to support students. A few things during the session, we are recording, number one. So if you don't want your face on the recording, you are welcome to turn your camera off. We do recommend that when you go into breakout rooms, you do turn it on so that you can see one another. The breakout rooms do not get recorded. But we do get a copy of the chat and all of that. So just want you to know that's going on. Today's session is sponsored by Pear Deck. They are an awesome tool, and I will talk a little bit more about them at the end. But for now, I am going to turn it over to Jessie, Joelle, and Janeen, and let them take it away from here. And I'm going to stop. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Colleen. Thank you to everybody for being here. This is so exciting. We just hit 100, which is super cool. So again, thank you for being here. I know time is really precious, so we really appreciate it. So I always like to say, especially now, change is inevitable, right? I mean, change is the thing right now. Things are constantly changing. I feel like not even just daily, but kind of like hourly if you're in education. But growth is optional, and you chose to be here and commit to your growth. So kudos to all of you, and a sincere thank you for giving of your time. Just a little bit about us. So I'm Jessie, obviously, and as Colleen said, we have Joelle and Janeen here as well. They are my partners in crime, and we just collectively, all three of us, I think we decided, or we totaled up, and it's like between the three of us more than like 65 years in education, which is amazing because I'm like 22, so I don't know how that happened, but just kidding. This is year 17 for me in the classroom. So I'm a teacher currently, taught several years in a traditional site at a big high school in Corona Norco. And now actually I have the privilege of working at an alternative site, serving at Promise Youth at one of our continuation sites. And then Joelle and Janeen were both alternative school principals and now are part of Thriving University. We formed this group because we really feel passionate not only about supporting student social emotional health, but teachers as well. So that's really our commitment to serving and helping people just continue to support their well-being. So I just want to assure you, Colleen at the end is going to give you a link to this presentation. So I think it's great if you take notes, but I don't want you to be like, oh, I missed that, or the link for the presentation will be available. And then we're going to be sharing several resources. And so you're going to have a link to a Google Drive that will give you access to those resources or access to articles that we reference, along with a little toolkit of strategies for a successful return. So just to assure you, you're going to be getting all those things. So I don't want you to have to be like feverishly trying to keep up with things, okay? So When we talk about strategies for a successful return, as I mentioned a little earlier, Joelle and Janeen and I are really just committed to serving both youth and teachers well, supporting their social emotional development. And really with the way you'll see us when we refer to social emotional learning, you're going to see an A in there, you're going to see S.E.A.L, because we don't really think you can separate social emotional health and academics. So we like to call it social emotional and academic learning because the two go together. S.E.A.L is not a detour, but an on-ramp for learning. And so just in looking at the research supporting implementation of S.E.A.L, how to best support students who have been impacted by trauma, and then just looking really at the neuroscience of how we learned, we try to synthesize some of the latest research to come up with ways that we should be a framework, so to speak, of what we should be keeping in mind as we re-enter, especially during an unprecedented time. So in this framework, the things we really want to hone in on are belonging in relationships, and how do you create that either in person or virtually, which we'll be talking a lot of, because I know a lot of us in this session will be going remote. I know I will be returning as a remote teacher this year. Intentional learning environments. How do we make sure that we're really providing instruction that works with brains? How do we show up as adults? And how do we embed S.E.A.L through explicit instruction and modeling? And so since we really have an hour and a half this morning, we opted to go for depth over breadth. So we just want to take a deep dive into two specific elements here. So we're really going to talk about, again, how do you solidify those relationships and build connection and belonging, whether it's in person or remote with your staff and students, and how do we make sure we show up as the people that we want to be with adult brain state, okay? So you all are pretty important. You're the big deal here. You're the ones that are going to be, running the show this year. So we just want to check in with all of you. So looking at our GIFs here, if you could in the chat box, which GIF best, or GIF, I've heard both. Can anybody actually tell me like what is the correct way? I always feel that's the only thing I feel a little uncertain of. I'm like, I've heard it pronounced both ways, but which GIF do you most relate to right now? So is it A, is it Homer? Hey, I got my second win, right? B, C, D, E, or F? Where are you at right now? And you can give a little Y if you'd like. I love it. Okay. This looks like we're kind of all over. I'm seeing a lot of C and E. I hear you. The winter is coming, even though it's still summertime. Yes. A through F, thank you. Yes, I see you, Esmeralda. A through F, all of them, right? A collection of a lot of things. We're actually going to talk about, Esmeralda, how you might be feeling any of these given things in a matter of like a minute. So just because I want to make sure as we're talking, we're modeling everything I think you should do with staff when you meet with them virtually. And when you meet with students, I would say a check-in is always a great thing to do. You could do it through this, kind of some levity with your GIFs. You could do it through pictures. This would be just another way to do it. This one's a kind of a fun one. On a scale of 1 to cat, how are you feeling today, right? I still don't know what's going on with cat number 3. It's questionable, the bubble, but hey, it's cool. You do you, cat. One other way to check in with staff or students is rose, thorn, bud. Kind of a nice one. And again, this is in your toolkit. You could even have the handout. It's ready to go. Or you could just pose the question. The rose would be, what's one good thing right now, or one beautiful thing? What's the thorn? What's the hard part? And then what's the bud? What's the thing that has some possibility right now? So we've done this with adults and kids, and it goes really well. But just really starting with a check-in to see where people are at. I saw some people acknowledge, actually, when they were checking in, that you're feeling a number of different feelings. And I think that is completely normal right now. In fact, Dr. Mark Brackett, who's founded the Center for Emotional Intelligence out of Yale, said this very early on during the pandemic. He went through and he surveyed people to ask how they were feeling. And he said what he found was really interesting is that there were these paradoxical feelings. There were he said the most reported feeling was anxiety. People were feeling anxious. But he said there was also this paradox where people were anxious but hopeful, or grateful but overwhelmed. So that's just really quite normal right now. And you might feel a lot of things, again, in any given moment. And so I think it's really important to recognize and to just validate that we're all experiencing pandemic trauma. We're going through collective trauma, right? We had a supremely rapid shift from what we knew as our normal in March thrown into this very uncertain realm. And we continue to live in that realm of uncertainty, right? As each day we're finding out about new cases or what school is going to look like or what's going to happen. And as we're experiencing job loss, right? There's finances that have been affected, and of course the loss of life or just people that are sick. So there's just a lot going on. So I think just recognizing that we're in this together. And while we may be in the same storm, we are in different boats, right? Again, nobody is going not impacted by this, but we may be experiencing it differently and have different circumstances. So really understanding to give grace and understanding, because if you're, as Brene Brown says, she's like, I like being judgmental. I'm just so good at it. I have to remember that. Like, I think it's easy right now to judge or say, you know, how people should be handling it. But again, it's just the time to be a little empathetic as we're all navigating this differently. So with that, I just want to validate everyone that you're seeing, however you're feeling is valid, and that you're just not alone, that we're in this together, and that, yeah, hopefully as educators, continue to rely on one another to navigate this. One strategy that I know I've been using a ton lately comes from Dr. Dan Siegel, and he's a neurobiologist from UCLA, and he has a name it to tame it strategy. So he just says, you know, when we have feelings, a lot of times we're just experiencing them. And if you're anything like me, what I like to do is I just like to escape them or like avoid them or put them in the file to deal with never if they're uncomfortable. But he says, actually what that does is it just allows the feeling to grow in force. So really the best thing we can do is name that feeling, because when we give it language, it lessens its power or control over us. So just saying, you know what, I'm feeling sad right now. Or you know what, yeah, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Like just naming it tames it. And just remembering that we are not our feelings, right? So just down here, like I am sad, maybe just trying to shift to I feel sad, or I notice that I'm sad. I know it seems so silly, you guys, but just sometimes changing that language gives that a little bit of space, and it just allows emotions to do what they're supposed to do, which what do we hear even in the word emotion? Motion, right? It's just to move through us, right? So just recognizing it's there. Okay, yeah, I'm feeling that, and letting it move through us. So something great for us and our students. My final bit of encouragement as we go through some of our learning today is please just choose one thing. I'll be really honest, when we as a team were even talking about shaping this presentation, it's like you want to provide as many resources as possible, almost like a menu. So, because I know certain people are going to connect with different resources or different ideas. At the same time, I feel like we're almost in this information overload, you know, where it's like we have access to so many resources, but it's just like, sometimes just honing in and working on one thing or just trying one thing will be great. Or if you find after this even like, man, I just need to work on my first week of teaching or whatever it is so that I can just feel good about it. Or you decide, I'm just going to give myself one more week of summer because I know it's going to be a crazy year. And so I'm just going to give myself that time to just you know, pick one thing and go through it in depth, because there's a lot being thrown at us now as educators. So I want to throw this idea out. I saw this the other day and I thought it was an interesting way to think about this year. The upcoming school year might be one of the toughest ever to be an educator. So we know that. That's true. I think that goes without saying, right? But it also might be the most exciting and revolutionary year ever. Mindset will be critical. So I'd love to hear from you in the chat box. In what ways could this year be revolutionary or exciting? And please don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to silver line or like put, you know, rosy colored glasses on this, but we know we're going into a really hard year. So I'm just wondering, in what ways could it maybe be exciting or maybe be revolutionary? Is there anything that you're seeing that this year might hold? Like my principal always says, don't ever, you know, waste a bad situation. Like he says, don't waste a mistake. What can you learn or what can you do with it? Yeah, I see a lot of people, tech savvy littles. I see a lot of tech creativity. Get to know families better. Very cool. Yeah, reaching out to the whole student to support them, better connection with parents. Beautiful. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I felt like my tech knowledge grew from like, I was like, oh, just, I would say okay technology wise, but it's just like, you know, in those 3 months at the end there, because you had to be, right? Excellent. Okay. Thank you for those responses. I appreciate that. And keep those going. Um, as we move into talking about belonging in relationship and why the brain is wired for connection, I want to get us in a great state of learning. So I'm going to lead you in a small focused attention practice. So it's a very simple one, just called smell the roses and blow out the candles. So just go ahead, whatever is comfortable for you. If you're seated, you know, get comfy in your chair. If you're standing, that's great too. I'm going to invite you, we're going to take 4 deep breaths. So when I say smell the flowers or smell the roses, you're going to inhale and blow out the candles, you'll exhale. Feel free to close your eyes as you do this or keep them open. It's whatever's most comfortable to you. So I'll say this aloud and you can just follow along in your head, okay? So here we go. Smell the roses, inhale. Blow out the candles, exhale. Smell the roses, inhale. Blow out the candles, exhale. Smell the roses. Blow out the candles. Feel free on this last one, because you're muted, even maybe give a really good exhale. Like, here we go. Smell the flowers. And give a good exhale. Now, I do mindfulness with my students. That's how I've done it for the past several years. We always start with a couple mindful minutes, or call it what you want. You can call it, you know, taking a breather. We also really like the term focused attention practice from Lori DeSuttles out of Butler University. It's anything that brings you in the moment. And so I know I'm starting to already think, like, how am I going to incorporate these focused attention practices into instruction online? Because the reality is, as you know, they're like, kids attention is already like all over the place, even in person. So trying to keep them like focused on a screen. So I know I just can't like pump content at them. Even olders. I went to a conference on neuroscience, and there was a neuroscientist there, and she said even adults at most their attention span is about 13 minutes. And I was like, oh, praise the Lord, it's not just me. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I just thought it was like, I have problems focusing or paying attention. So if that's you too, you're in good company. You're okay. Like, your brain can only do so much. So I know I'm going to have to incorporate these little bits of either focused breathing, but a focused attention practice can be movement too. I feel like elementary teachers, you're so good about this, you know, with Go Noodle or just getting everybody up and moving or playing some music. But even as adults, even or you know, teen learners, I'm like, I need to incorporate movement and things that are going to keep my kids engaged. So just something to be swirling in your head. So let's look at our brain. I'm going to give a super simplified overview that this probably is review for a lot of us, but I think it's really important to keep in mind just how our brain functions right now. So again, this is a very simplified version, but if we think of it this way, we have, you know, our brain stem, which controls a lot of autonomic functions like heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, swallowing, right? We don't have to tell ourselves like, oh, breathe, body, breathe, right? Like, thank goodness, like our body is doing that for us. And then you have more of like the limbic system, right? Which controls, that's your feelings and your emotions. That's where the amygdala lives, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then you have your cortical level of your brain, your top or level of your brain. And we, especially as teachers, love that prefrontal cortex, you know, that's the part that controls rational decision-making, controls impulsivity, helps us to make long-term goals, right? That's a beautiful thing when you're in education. So the questions that brainstem is asking is really just that survival state, right? Am I safe? Am I physically safe? Because as we know, brains in pain can't learn. I can't focus on things when I don't feel safe. But take the next level up. Am I loved? Do I belong here? Do I feel connected? Psychological safety is just as imperative to learning as physical safety. And then you have the executive state, or that's again that cortical level, which is what can I learn from this? That's the sweet spot, right? As educators, that's where we want kids to be. But we have to meet those 2 layers, right? Before we can get them to that higher level thinking. And thinking back to pandemic trauma, right? Or heightened stress right now. I mean, kids are asking not only physically, am I safe? And as we know, a lot of our students are in homes that are volatile. And so that's a huge piece right there. But then and then above that, just they're feeling uncertain and like coming into a new year of like never having, for those who are in virtual, right? this is not, however, how they've started, or you have new kinders. I know we have some kinder teachers, which I'm sure you're already thinking like they've never even seen what school looks like, a lot of them. So to start remotely, I mean, there's just so many pieces. So how do we make them feel safe? Things that our brain does not like is chronic unpredictability, isolation, and physical and emotional restraint, right? Which you think about, again, the situation we're at. These are things that our brain is up against pretty regularly right now. So in knowing this, if we know that this is how the brain does not like these features, or this being in this state, how can we be intentional about addressing what the brain needs? So if we think about not liking unpredictability, how can we build in predictability for our students and ourselves, right? We need it first. Our brains deserve to be in a resting, peaceful state too, right? So how can we build in predictability with flexibility, of course? How can we prioritize social connection? And don't get me wrong, isolation, you know, when I said this, that brains don't like isolation, I know there's people like, no, I really like alone time. Like, don't get me wrong. I have 2 small children who I've been with a lot lately, who I love, but I would not mind some time away from. I'm an extrovert, and I still like, I want time away. I want alone time. Isolation is different, right? This is when you're just cut off from no social connection at all. So how are we building in social connection, again, even remotely? Right? If we can't be in person, or how do we empower student and staff voice? Because what people don't have a lot of right now is control. I'm sure you might be feeling that as well, right? I don't have a control over a lot of decisions that are being made. And so I would say anybody who's an administrator, finding ways to give your staff control and allowing their voice and input to matter. And then as educators, we need to give this to our students, right? So optimizing our brains, right? Knowing how they work, that the only way to soothe the survival state is through the creation of safety. So, right, so when somebody's, that brainstem, am I physically safe? How do we do that, right? The only way to soothe an upset emotional state is through connection. You know, I think back to distance learning at the end of last year, and I would call a lot of my students, and I remember one young woman, she was just having like a really hard time. Her dad had recently left, and he didn't give any indication of when he was coming back, and so she was living with her mom, who she did not get along with. And one day she was just crying, and she was just like, Miss Fuller, I hate this. I hate being at home. I would give anything to go back to school. That was like my one place I could just get away and I could just be me, you know? And I just realized in the moment, like we just needed to say like, yeah, it sucks. It's hard. It's terrible. Like, I'm sorry. I want to go back to, I do. Like that was not the time when she was in this emotional state, when she was actually, we'll talk about amygdala hijacked, right? When her amygdala was in fight, flight, or freeze, that was not the time to be like, well, what are some solutions, right? She couldn't, her cortical level of her brain wasn't engaged. She just needed to feel like psychologically safe and connected to another person, right? And once she was calm from there, then we can move into some solutions. And we even got, and not that it solved everything, but, you know, we got her connected to getting some art supplies and finding some outlets for just finding some healthy ways to cope. But just that connection piece, I think, is going to be really critical as kids and staff members just express some of the ways they're feeling. And we just need to connect with that moment, right? So some big ideas to keep in mind: connection before content. And the more we connect, the less we correct, right? I just think about this when I add this one, the more we connect, the less we correct. We talk about this a lot in our sessions when we're talking about in person, but I think this is going to be so true online as well. You know, I just see a lot of kids like tuning out or not being engaged. Like, I think the more we can connect with them, the less we'll have to like, you know, it's Elijah, look at the camera. So we have to cultivate the climate, right? We have to create the conditions for our kids to feel connected, for staff to feel connected. When a flower doesn't bloom, we fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower, right? We don't blame the kids or the staff for not showing up the way we want them to. We have to create the conditions for them to flourish, right? I love what Richard Branson says. He says, clients do not come first. Employees come first. If you take care of your employees, they will take care of the clients. This is why, again, anybody who's there, if your charge is to take care of adults, I think it's so crucial, right? That we're taken care of and we show up well, because if that's the state we're in, then we're going to take care of our kids. So we must nourish the environment so that staff and students can flourish. How do we do this? Through belonging and relationships, right? It is possible to prepare for the future without knowing what it will be. The primary way to prepare for the unknown is to attend to the quality of our relationships, to how well we know and trust each other. little crazy fact, did you know that loneliness is as harmful to your well-being as smoking 15 cigarettes a day? Which you might be saying, like, Jessie, you're crazy, you're just making things up for like shock factor, but I promise you, Joelle was actually the one who shared this with me, and I was like, I don't believe you, girl, but I did my research. But it's crazy, right? But if you think about it, especially like our elderly population, what happens if oftentimes when you're older and you're living by yourself, or maybe you go live in a home and you stop having regular social interactions, what do we see? You see health start to deteriorate rather rapidly, right? We know that social support strengthens resilience. Stress levels go down, right? You have a decrease in cortisol. So it bolsters your immune system, essentially strengthening your heart, right? Your overall well-being. And I think right now, when physical distancing is deemed necessary, social and emotional connection is even more critical, right? So I'm going to show you a little video of two cuties, two young ladies who don't know each other, and they're just meeting for the first time in a digital platform, and just kind of seeing, how does this connection happen? How is it that they're able to create a relationship remotely, okay? Oops.
That made you happy today?
Start again.
When I heard
for that little audio glitch.
What's something that made you happy today?
When I heard something about food.
For me, when my dog looks up at me really cutely.
Oh,
I know, he's so adorable.
I love dogs.
Yeah, they're amazing.
I want a dog, but I can't get one.
I know, it's hard to have a dog. It's a lot of responsibility.
If you could wake up tomorrow having gained any one quality or ability, what would it be and why?
I would want basically anything nature-y, like have a power like that. So I could like control fruit, and I could like make fruit appear, and I could also like communicate to animals and stuff.
I would even want to be able to talk to raccoons, because there's something there we don't know about.
If your friends were willing to honestly tell you what they thought of you, what do you think they might say?
Oh, whoa. I want to know what I can work on, but I also don't want to hear what I'm doing wrong. It kind of feels sad when like they say you're doing something wrong, you know?
Yeah.
Share something you consider a positive characteristic of your partner.
You could be humorous for sure, and that I like that about you.
I liked how you're passionate. Make 3 true we statements each.
We both like dogs.
Yeah, and we both can't go outside, or we can't interact with a bunch of people.
Oh yeah, and we're both on the Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
We both like pizza for sure. Oh yeah, speaking of food, there's like no Mexican food here, so.
Oh, that's I feel like it's sad for them.
Yeah, whenever anybody's ever gonna visit me, I'm just saying, bring Mexican food to people. I'm dying.
You can dream about it at least. Have a good last day of the weekend.
Homework that's hopefully not too hard.
I hope that the school takes mercy on you.
Yeah, I really hope that homework has mercy on me. Okay, well, bye.
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 I thought it was very fun, and I'm happy I got to know her. We were able to really get to know each other by asking questions and having a good conversation.
I feel like that we could easily become friends by like meeting in person, and that these questions helped a lot for sure.
All right. If you could, in the chat box, aren't they cute? The raccoon bit gets me every time. I've seen it several times, but there's something there. I feel the same way. They're little masks. What are they hiding? If you could, just in the chat box, what was something that struck you about the video, or why are building belonging and cultivating connections so important now, especially more than ever? So if you could, in the chat box, just what struck you? Yeah, I saw a lot of people saying that they connected so quickly, right? Exactly, virtual pen pals. I'm totally with you. I'm going to try that with some of my students. I saw somebody say that. I love it. Yeah, and I see a lot of people talking about the questions too. So we're big believers at Thriving that a good question goes a long way, right? Like a good question helps kind of really increase or speed or quicken connection. In fact, those questions, I don't know if you saw right at the end, they were, it said 36 questions to build closeness. That's actually built on a study that a psychologist did. He wanted to see, could you basically speed up the rate of intimacy or connection between two people? So that's what he did, is he would take two strangers and he had this set of 36 questions that they would go through. The lore of psychology is that one couple ended up actually getting married afterwards. So, you know, apparently it worked, but it's not just for like romantic intimacy. It's just, you know, friendship as well. And so we'll give you a link to that. I bet Joelle or Janeen can put that in there. Now, some of these questions are for more adult levels, but you could definitely modify them to fit whatever age range you're working with. And because we like to give people opportunities to actually practice or experience what they see, we're going to do a breakout room. So in a moment, you're going to be teamed up. You're going to be broken up just randomly with somebody else in this session. And I know that some of you are thinking like, oh, now's my time to get off, like, or go to the bathroom. Like, I promise you, friends, we wouldn't do this if we didn't think it was for your benefit. So please trust us a little bit on this. You can keep your camera off if you want, but just know we're all at home just chilling in our PJs. Like, right, it's 9 o'clock. The only, literally, I got makeup on for you guys. This is after like 2 weeks. I've not put on makeup or hoops in like a month. So when you get into your breakout room, if you want to keep your camera off, you can, but I would encourage you maybe turn it on, talk to your person, and you're going to answer 2 questions, right? 2 of the questions from the list. So what is something that made you happy today? And then if you could wake up tomorrow having gained any one quality or ability, what would it be and why? So if you want to take a picture of these questions, because again, in a moment, you're no longer going to see this screen. You're going to be in a breakout room, okay? Each person will get to have 1 minute to respond. And if you could, let's do this. The person whose first name is closer to the letter Z, you're going to speak first. Okay, so if your name is closer to the letter Z, you'll speak first. Each of you will get a minute to answer both questions, and then we'll come back, okay? So with that said, Joelle's going to help us out, and you're going to go into break rooms. You'll have 2.
We still have about 30 seconds left in the groups. So there's still some people coming back, and Jessie's in a group, so she'll be popping back in just a second now. If we do another breakout, just keep in mind that you don't have to click back. It'll automatically jump you back at the end.
All right, welcome back. Sorry, I'm sure you could have had more time. I apologize. I know it's like quick. I know I love talking to Roberto. I would have liked more time with them too, but thanks for doing that. Thanks for being willing to try something out. And actually, I'm gonna ask you just, I'll go back to that. Okay, if you could just in the chat box, tell me how did that go? Just what was that like being in a breakout room, someone you didn't know? Oops, sorry guys, my cursor just left the screen, so I can't see it right now. So if you could just, if you wanted to respond in the chat box, how did that go? What was it like? I want to put out to you also, I saw on Twitter, maybe some of you saw it too, several teachers are asking Zoom to create a feature within Zoom so that you can actually see all the breakout rooms of your students. So you can just pop in, not only for monitoring, but just so like you can hear their conversations, that you would ordinarily be able to hear as you were walking around the classroom. And so Zoom said they're taking it into consideration. So hopefully, fingers crossed. So yeah, what was that like for you? Here are the 36 questions for increasing closeness, just a little picture of them. But like I said, Joelle or Janeen, I think you're putting a link in there. And also in our little toolkit we're going to give you, we have more questions to build belonging. We have some feeling check-in questions that you could do at the beginning of the day. We have just more general get to know you questions, and the way we've kind of broken them up, as you see, like there's a second page to this, kind of starts with more low trust, and then questions that go a little deeper for higher trust. So as you move along, at the beginning of the year, you might be asking more, again, surface level questions to build safety when there's not a lot of trust yet, but as things move along to move into those, questions that will build, because questions, as you know, that are a little more vulnerable actually build more connection. I would also say being mindful, just this is at a little aside, but I'm just starting to think about, for my class, how am I going to address the elephant in the room, right? Like I want to give kids space to talk about how they feel about the pandemic. And I mean, we all know how we feel, right? It's hard enough as teachers, like some of us don't even know, how are we going back? Are we going back virtually? Are we going back in person? Like it's just so much, right, for us. So not projecting all that onto them necessarily, but giving them open space to talk about it, or talking about just the racial tension right now, right? It's always been there, but now there's kind of a spotlight on it, and kids need a space to talk about that, right? So just thinking, how are we offering space for that to happen safely? Because men hate each other because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other, and they don't know each other because they are often separated from each other.
Jess, I'm going to interrupt you for just a sec. Do you know that we can't see your screen?
Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. That's probably you guys are so sweet. Thank you, Joelle, for doing that. Sorry, I couldn't find my cursor for a minute, and then I couldn't. It looked like you could, but okay. Thanks. See, guys, learning as we go. Learning as we go. See for me too. Okay, let's see. Stop sharing. I'm going to do this for a minute. Okay. How about now? Are we good? Thank you. Sorry, these were the questions we're talking about that are in the toolkit, guys, to build belonging. Okay. There's my little quote just read from Mr. Martin Luther King Jr. So the big idea I just want to impress upon us here is, as educators and a leader, we are the broker of relationships. We are the social architects, whether it's in person or now in a Zoom room or Google Meet. We have to create spaces for not only to build relationships between ourselves and our students, but student to student, right? And if we're leaders, how are we facilitating connection between our staff members, right now? And it can be done. It just has to be even more intentional when we're not physically in proximity, right? So belonging is the feeling that one is valued and respected in any given context. And this is crucial. This is not like a nice to have, like, oh, that's a cute idea, belonging. Like it just was a matter of life and death. If you think back to our ancestors, you had to rely on other people for survival. No one could possibly hunt enough food, gather enough, also keep the children safe, or someone had to stay awake at night while some people were sleeping so that they were protected. It wasn't just like, oh, it's nice to have a buddy. It's like, no, you need people to survive, right? So we are neurobiologically wired for connection. Now, when we go into, if you think about our fight, flight, or freeze, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, right? When we, let's just back up a little bit. The brain's number one job is survival, right? If you think about it, it's not to write poetry. It's not to, learn the most they can. But the brain's number one job, that's nice. That's that cortical level. But the brain's number one job is just to keep you alive. And thank you for that, right? So when we perceive physical danger, what does our brain do? We go into a fight, flight, or freeze response, right? So usually if our brain's like this, thank you, Dr. Dan Siegel, for giving us a little brain model, that prefrontal cortex, this is a brain that's like not stressed out. But what happens when we do feel like we're in danger is we go bing, and we flip our lid, right? Grandma wasn't lying, we flip our lid. And what goes off is your amygdala, or as I like to call her with my students, Amy G. Della. And we talk about Amy. We say, you can't ignore Amy, okay? Amy needs to be paid attention to. And we go into fight, flight, or freeze. And this is when we feel physical danger. But the brain doesn't really delineate between physical pain or social pain. In fact, they've done research on it. It's super cool. Social pain activates the same region of the brain as physical pain. So when you don't feel like you belong, same thing happens. In fact, I'll give you a little scenario if you want in the chat box just to respond to this. What happens, imagine, go back to a day, diddle-oo, 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 time travel to a time where we met in person for professional development. Usually it would be at your district office. What would be the first thing you would do when you would walk into a PD when you don't know who's going to be there? So in the chat box, will you tell me, what was the first thing you would do when you would walk into a room where you didn't know who else was going to be present? What would you do? Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, look for someone I know, look for my friends, look for a friendly face, look for someone familiar. Is that because we're not competent individuals? No, you're working professionals. You're amazing. It's just that we want to feel psychologically safe. And let's be honest, we've all been to terrible PDs. If we're going down, you want to go down with a buddy, right? Like if we're going to sit through 8 hours of terrible, you better have someone by your side, right? You're not riding solo. So belonging is really important to all of us as adults and as kids. So it starts with us. So if you look at what can happen when we talk about adults, when they feel like they don't belong at work. So we're just talking about adults right now, when they don't feel connected at work, less enjoyment, less engaged, less productive, higher levels of anxiety and depression, and you have it impacts their well-being, right? When the brain is in the reward state though, when the brain is engaged, the prefrontal cortex is engaged, you're not in your amygdala hijack stage, you're right here. Adults perceive more options for problem solving, they're more collaborative, better overall performance. So we are wired to belong. Relationships, whether it's for adults or kids, trump every strategy. So we're going to go over a lot of strategies today, but for myself, I'm keeping this in mind too, Jessie. Like you can create a beautiful Google slideshow, you can create a beautiful Flipgrid, but if I don't have a relationship with my kids, it's not going to matter. So I want you in the chat box to tell me, when was a time, when you think of a time at work, you don't have to say what that time was, but think of a time, it doesn't have to be this job, it could have been before, where you were working or when you were a student in school and you didn't feel like you belonged. How did that impact your performance? So think of a time at a job you were at or when you were in school, and if you felt like you didn't belong there, how did that impact your performance? Yeah, thanks for the honesty. I'm seeing a lot of people say, I quit. I was silent. I did the very minimum that was asked of me. I felt dragged down. I didn't want to go. Exactly. So thank you for being so candid. I think about that with our students. I quit school. I stopped showing up. I gave them minimal effort, right? I think about kids when they don't feel like they belong, right? And we know how it feels as adults, and our kids operate the same way. I couldn't focus. Yeah. So just some ideas, my friends. And remember, just one thing. I'm giving you a menu, but just one thing. Some ideas for creating belonging with staff virtually. Provide opportunities for staff to engage with each other and not just sit and listen, right? Not just a dissemination of information. Provide breakout rooms for your staff, right? Let them get to know each other that way. Do check-ins with them, right? Little scavenger hunts. We've done this before. It seems silly, but it was super fun. We did a scavenger hunt. You had like 2 minutes and there were a list of things you had to find in your room and people brought them to the screen. It was just a cute way to see what was in people's homes, or what was important to them. We're going to give you a link to a Google check-in form that's for students, but it could easily be modified for staff. And it just basically asks like, how are you doing? What's any questions you have right now? What's one of the most challenging aspects of, the situation? What's something you're grateful for, right? Super straightforward, could be used for staff or students. Address teachers or staff members, anybody on your team by name, and say their names correctly. I know this seems silly, but we've gotten to work, we've been really fortunate to work with a lot of educators, and they tell me, like I had one person say, I'm pretty sure my principal doesn't know my name. It's my 4th year here and he still calls me young man. So it goes a long way, right? If people address you by name and say your name correctly, just like we have to say our kids' names correctly, right? Have staff share personal experiences during virtual meetings as well as professional. So not making every question, even in a breakout room, about something professionally related, but just get to know them as people, right? Optional staff meetings with weekly updates if you want. Our principal's doing this right now and it's really helping. He doesn't have a lot of answers and he tells us, he's like, I don't have all the answers, but it just helps that he's keeping us connected. And then if you want to do some weekly videos, we know some principals who are doing that, which is cool. Now, belonging for kids, right? We know it's hugely important for adults. It starts with the adults. We have to feel connected and belonged and safe in order to show up well for our kids. So for our kids, we know that every child who winds up doing well has had at least one stable and committed relationship with a supportive adult, right? When kids feel like they don't belong, they search for cues to help them determine if they fit in, if they're liked, if they're valued. And when they search for these cues about belonging, if they don't find them, they can be anxiety-inducing. It depletes your cognitive resources, right? The prefrontal cortex. I saw several of you in your chat box say, when I didn't feel like I belonged, I couldn't focus, right? Again, because your stress response is going off, so your cortical brain isn't engaged, right? Makes them less motivated and engaged. So here's what it might look like in the classroom. And when I say classroom, it could be in the physical classroom or the remote classroom. But brains in pain can't learn. This is what it might look like if kids are in flight, in fight, or in freeze. If you could, on your reaction tab, you know your reaction tab, probably for most of you at the bottom of your screen, some of you might be at your top depending on what you're on. If you could give me a thumbs up if you've seen some of these behaviors at your school site. I used to ask people which ones they saw, but now I've started asking people, which ones have you not seen? Because most of us have probably seen a good majority, right? And so sometimes what we're calling that kid, that the student is oppositional, right? That student is just, malicious or trying to get at me. It's just a kid in fight mode. It's a kid in their stress response, right? Their amygdala is responding. Or the kid, the flight, that kid just doesn't care. She just keeps her head down. She doesn't care about my class. Maybe they're just in flight mode, right? So I want to know for us, because again, our brains don't change suddenly. I mean, our brains, we know, develop from the back to the front. The prefrontal cortex is fully developed around 25. They say, new research is saying it might even be a little later than that. So we have a little bit more developed, right? But we still experience our stress response. So I just want to know for you, just this week, when you have felt stressed, which F have you gone to? Have you gone to fight? Have you gone to flight? Have you gone to freeze? Again, for me, for a long time, because all of this was so overwhelming and we didn't have a clear answer if we were going in person or not going in person, I just was flight. I checked out. I was like, I'm not going to do any work because I don't even know the path. It was like just overwhelming for me. Some people ask me during this session, this time, like, which stress response is going to your cupboard and just eating everything in it? And I'm like, well, it depends. It could be a lot. That could be a lot of things, right? Okay, so when we build belonging in school, students are more likely to be motivated, engaged, resilient, successful, right? And it boosts their overall mental health, which I think is so huge for kids right now, right? They've gone through a doozy of a time. Their well-being is suffering. And so talk about if we can make them feel connected, I think it will go a long way. So some simple ways, things, and I hope you look at these and you're like, Jessie, I'm already doing this. And I would say, whew, high five. I hope what we talk about here is not all revolutionary. I hope it's all things, some of the things are like, get some new ideas, but also be like, I'm doing this. But now, since I know the research behind belonging, now I know why it matters and I can be more intentional about being the social architect, right? So warmly greeting all your students as they enter, again, if you're remote, as they enter the Zoom room, right? And calling them by name. Hi, Joelle. Hi, Janeen. Hi, Colleen. Hi, Kathy, right? Make eye contact as they come in. It seems silly, but Joelle, the first time I did a Zoom PD, she was like, you're not looking at the camera. So my camera, my Zoom, my computer's up on books now. And it seems really silly because it seems weird to be looking at the middle, my camera, because I'd kind of be looking down, but look here. Use and pronounce students' names correctly. Send home positive letters with students' names. Highlight small connections. Like we were in a session with some teachers several times, and we found out that one teacher really liked Bon Jovi. So as we started the Zoom meeting, we were playing Bon Jovi, right? Only he knew it. Only he knew that that mattered for him, but that's okay. Supporting belonging through equitable participation, so chat boxes or making ways that multiple people can engage. Student-teacher dialogue journals. I'm going to try these out like a virtual journal through Google Slides, where I'm going to put out all the prompts at the beginning of the week so that I can just respond back to them in Google Slides. And then those Google check-in forms that we'll show you soon. I love this. One of my elementary school buddies, she's doing this virtual greeting with her kids. And so when they come in, when they enter the Zoom room, they are greeted with this little slide. And I'm sure you've seen these in person before, you know, where kids could choose if they wanted, like the heart was they would get a hug, you know, if the high five would get a high five. The way she's doing it is if they say they want a heart, then she just gives them one of these. They say they want a high five, she gives them a virtual high five. Do you want a thumbs up? Or if there's music, she stands up and she dances with them for just a couple seconds. So I just thought that was such a cool way to take a practice in person and translate it. These are some results from the Google form. You can see that just checking in is what it looks like. And I didn't try to make it overwhelming. I just had a few questions on it. Every week it did have the same 3 questions, which was how are you feeling, or what word best describes how you're feeling this week. And you can see where my students were at. Good portion of them were content. This was the first week. I started this with distance learning. Good percentage were either anxious or frustrated also. And then there was a spot where they could write in how they felt. So annoyed, off my rocker, a collection of all of these emotions, trapped, right? So it was a really good indicator for me of who I needed to follow up on or with. It was also an indicator of who was doing okay, which that was the hardest thing for me, is not knowing how my students were doing. So it gave me peace of mind to know, okay, these kiddos are okay right now. Here's who I need to follow up with. So that was one thing I always ask, which word best describes you? I also asked what's something you're grateful for, just because I know during challenging times, it helps to look for the good. But I also would give them questions about the pandemic, like what is the most challenging thing, right? Those are ones that I would change up. The other third question that I would always keep the same was, what is something, is there anything you'd like me to know? An open-ended question, they could tell me anything they wanted, right? And here were some of the responses I got on that third question. You know, I was having a hard time at my other high school because it was mostly online, which made me fail and transfer. And so now doing school like this is bringing back stressful vibes. So good to know. Like this was the baggage she was carrying, right? I miss you in school so badly. I hate being at home, right? I've been in the hospital for 2 days. Please give me more time to finish assignments, right? Such valuable information that I would have never known had I not put out this little small piece of communication. In fact, I think when I go back in person, I mean, I'll definitely be using these remotely when we start, but even going back in person, because we do run circles in my class, but there's some kids don't feel comfortable sharing anyway. So this was such a great little way to find out more. So I've just given you a lot of information. And so I want to model what I talked about earlier, is giving the brain some time to chunk and to take a little break so it can re-engage more fully in the next section of learning. So we have focused attention practices. That's anything that brings you in the moment, the breathing, the movement. But then there's also brain intervals. So there's a bunch of little fun ones, and they're included in your toolkit too. But one of them is peace and love. So my friends, you're going to see me in total growth mindset mode because I'm not good at this yet. Okay, but if you could, with one hand, make the love symbol, with the other some peace and love. Now I want you to switch. And then switch again. And then switch again. 2 more times. Sorry, wrong finger. Wrong one. The tall finger's going up. Didn't mean to throw that one at you guys. Mr. Tall Finger, please sit down. So just silly practices like that. Again, there's some more for you, but it's good to work those in, because I'm sure even if you're feeling like, woo, even if you like the information, like this is a lot, I need a little break. So anything that gets you back engaged. These are some colleagues of some elementary colleagues in our district who they did this even before remote learning, but they would go deliver yard signs. I think it's an adorable idea. I think it's a little harder for my high school counterparts, as we have like 200 plus kids. Well, I mean, I have less now because I'm on an alt ed site, but just something, if you do have an ability to do that, right? I'm probably going to go the postcard route, where I'm going to make a little postcard. This is a friend who she just sent out letters to each student. She tries to do that before the end of the year. Also, I'm sure many of us are familiar with Remind. I mean, that is one of the first things I'm doing is for my olders. Yes, I have their parent contact info, but I'm getting their contact information. I'm getting it right away so that I have a regular direct way to contact my kids, right? Like a great communication tool. If you haven't checked it out yet, totally free. Remind is beautiful. You may also be familiar with the 2x10 strategy. You know, it's the idea of picking 2 kids to connect with. Well, it can be, I guess, as many as you want, the 2, but 2 kids to connect with for at least 2 minutes every day for 10 days. And this does not have to be like a straight, like 2-minute like conversation with a student, but it's little touch points. It's just raising your awareness and trying to be intentional with connecting with them. The idea being that this connection will, you know, the more we connect, the less we correct, will decrease the amount that you'll have to correct them, or that will help them become more engaged. So I was already starting to play with what would a 2x10 look like in remote or virtual capacity. So I was just thinking, capitalizing on those moments. If a student gets there kind of earlier than some of the other kids in Google or Meets or Zoom, like just talking to them a little bit, or using the private chat feature, you know, in Zoom, you can just directly message somebody. So directly messaging them to make them feel special. Of course, sending some emails or a remind message. You can text messages, Class Dojo, but just sending direct messages. Or the big one, I think I'm hoping to do, and we have wonderful classified staff members who are like, we want to do something, you know, please give us things to do right now. It's just helping to maybe like, or pulling them in to help with connecting with kids, and then it can increase their purpose as well. Another thing I've seen done, and I'm going to create a list for my kids, is every time I find out a little something about them, I'm going to create a Sparks list and write down, if you know, if it's in a journal, I find out they like football, or they find out they like cars, or in a conversation, as much as I can remember, I'm going to put it in. This was a staff that did this. I thought this was really cool. Collectively, as a school site, they made a Sparks list, so that if, say, you were the science teacher and you found out something about one of your students, you put that in, and maybe I'm the teacher, another teacher that's having a hard time connecting with that kiddo, I can go in and see, oh, hey, these are some other interests. So I thought that was just one more clever idea. We've included some resources for virtual circles. I think for circles, I've run them online already with students, can be done just really the same way. You just have to be a little intentional, since you can't have a physical talking piece, as to like who is going. Sometimes we've done it alphabetically, we've done it by birthday, we've changed it up. Another great way is Flipgrid. We worked with a group of teachers in Hawaii, and they were so great. They made Flipgrids to get to know each other better, because they were part of a division that they worked together, but not very closely. So I think Flipgrids for students or Flipgrids for even staff is a great way to connect right now, which is super fun. I would be mindful to talk to your students. So I know I have some students who they like Flipgrid, but they don't want other kids to see it all the time. So when I first do Flipgrids, I only make it so that I just see it. Because, you know, again, starting from low trust to building up to higher trust. One little last piece of technology we wanted to mention, it's Closed Gap, it's free. It's very cool, especially for youngers. You can check in. You can assign a class list. You have your class, and it just asks them how are they feeling, and then it goes through a few questions, and it even asks them like, if you aren't feeling kind of sad, like that's totally okay. What does that feel like in your body? Would you like to change the way you feel right now? And here are some suggestions. And then it kind of just, and it also has a spot in there too, is would you like someone to follow up with you? Would you like to talk to somebody? And so it's a great concise way to get some data, which is kind of cool. So that's just one more free thing that's available to you. And I want to bring it back to the point though, it really doesn't matter what technology you use, right? The most important thing is you. You're the big deal. You're the human connection. So I don't want you to feel like, oh, I'm not using Closed Gap, or I'm not using Flipgrid, or I'm not doing Google slideshows that are beautiful, or I don't have a Bitmoji, right? You're the big deal. You know, pick something, you know, if that's fun for you and that's great, but you're the big deal, right? Whatever feels authentic and is keeping your kids connected to you, because they want you. We set the conditions for student belonging. So we know we are taking some big leaps right now, my friends, big leaps. Quite honestly, what's being asked of us as educators is above and beyond. We've been asked to do a lot before this, but above and beyond. I heard a late night talk show host last night. He was like, man, teachers, I don't know how much we can throw at you, how much more we can throw at you, or how much more we can expect of you, right? So I want to take a minute, and so much like uncertainty and so much of like unknowns, and so much I think teachers are feeling like, I don't know how to teach online well, I don't know what to do, to take a minute to just, what's going well? So in a moment, you're going to get another chance to do a breakout room, okay? You're going to have a different partner, 2 minutes again, okay? Each person's going to get 1 minute. And I just want you to answer this question. What is something that either went well for you during distance learning, or something that is going well for you right now? Again, I'm sure there's lots of things that you want to fix or do better. But what is something that you're like, and I know teachers, we're notorious, or educators, I should say. I know we have people in here who aren't like what's considered like your stereotypical classroom teacher. I want to be very clear. I use teacher very purposely because to me, any adult who interacts with a child or an adult on a campus is a teacher, because we're always watching each other, right? Kids are always watching adults, and adults to adults are watching what's acceptable behavior. So we are all teachers. So either what's something that went well during distance learning, or what's going well now. Each of you will have a minute. Let's do this. The person whose name is closest to A, you're gonna speak first. Oh, and sorry, one thing to add, because I know we have some teachers in here, like bless your hearts, who are brand new teachers. I just talked to one. Shout out to my friends who this is your first year in education. You are seriously incredible. So if you can't talk about what you did well during distance learning, just talk about something you're kind of feeling good about right now, okay? All right, go ahead, enjoy your breakout room.
Just gonna say one thing, there are some groups that have 3, so just know that. And when you get the announcement that you have 60 seconds left, don't jump back, stay in the room. It'll automatically bring you back, okay?
Awesome, Joelle, why don't we do, okay, yeah, I was gonna say we can do 3 minutes. Is that okay? We can do 3 minutes, we're doing great on time. 3 minutes.
Jojo. I see you. I'm trying to see if I couldn't find you because I didn't know that breakout room was coming, so I had to hurry and do it. And there's so many rooms. I'm just trying to make sure that whoever you were in a room with isn't by themselves. So
oh, yeah. You can send me back if I missed the question.
My God, there's so many rooms. There's 50-something rooms.
Oh, there's a lot of people.
Let's see. I'm only on 32. Oh, there you are. Yeah, your person's by themselves.
Oh, by themselves?
Yeah, because I couldn't see where you were, so I couldn't take you out. Let me move somebody from another room there, and I'm not timing. Oh, he's asking for help. Shoot.
Where? I don't see it. Where do I go? Chat?
Does it say join room for you?
No.
You should get a message that said join room.
Did I know?
Are
we recording this?
Yes, this is recorded. Hold on just 1 second.
Let me see.
Okay, hopefully. I'll be right back.
When I click breakout rooms, it says you have been assigned to room 32. Should I?
I just put someone else in there. So
Oh,
that's why. Just remember it's being recorded.
yeah.
Okay.
Got that.
I'm gonna mute.
Good vibe today. Feels good. Yeah, they're having fun.
Hello?
Sorry, thank you. I want to say, so see, last time you could see my screen. Now this time you can't hear me. I just want to keep everybody on your toes. This is what it's going to be like in the classroom, right? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? So can I get a thumbs up? Are we good? Can you hear and see me? Okay, thanks, Janeeners. Yeah, so I just want to say thank you to all of you who took a risk, who tried something new. Maybe that might be the first time you did breakout rooms in a PD with people you didn't know. So I really do appreciate that. I was talking to, well, my partner Echo, she was lovely. And we were just talking about how really, because a lot of people I know are in this spot too, where they might be going back in person, but then they could go remote at any time. And we were just talking about the connection, that we're going to be the consistent piece, right? That the format might change for students, but even more reason why it's so important that that relationship is strong, because we're going to be the one constant that they have. So just thought that was a really interesting point that she made. So thank you for that. So we know that in our connected world, like right now, we have to be, we must be tech savvy. We have to. That's going to be our format for educating, right? That's like for something we don't have a choice. That's just going to be the way we're going to connect. But one thing I will just say to that, because as we know, we can be more connected than ever through devices, but more seemingly disconnected on a real level. So just one thing to keep in mind that I'm having to tell myself is, where's my flashlight of attention? As I'm a mom and also an educator, trying to keep up with the things that are being asked of me of school and my students, but also just asking, like, where's my flashlight, and just taking a few moments to be like, okay, Addie, my daughter, she's 8, for just a few more months. Like, am I honed in on her? Have I detached enough from my email, from Twitter, right? Because I'm like, I want to get updates, right? All these things, but can I detach for some moments to just be present and have a few minutes with her, right? Or my son, or my puppy. We were in a session with a woman, and she was so lovely and honest. She said, she's like, I don't get me wrong, I was the mom of the year, in the sense of, she's like, I packed all the snacks. I drove everybody to every practice. I was there physically. She said, but I think I've had my flashlight turned off for the past 20 years. I mean, it was such an honest, admission, but just recognizing that with so much technology that we're surrounded by, sometimes we're detached from the present moment. So just as a bit of supporting your own personal well-being, right? Your own personal health, or really just tuning in to, a student at any given time, or a colleague. Because really what we all want is to be seen and to feel felt, right? So where's our flashlight? We want to learn and grow. We need to have connection before content. So if you could, as we wrap up this section about belonging and relationships, in the chat box, describe the emoji that represents how you feel about today's lesson so far. And I left it generic, because just so you could use this if you wanted to use it as like a check for understanding, or a check for learning, or a check for connection as you go through a lesson. So in our class right today, our lesson was belonging so far. So which emoji best describes, how you're feeling about this idea of being really, really intentional about being a social architect? I wish that'd be the next thing I wish Zoom would have, is you could have emojis. Awesome, thanks. See heart eyes, I see. Nice, excited eyes, smiley face, very nice. Thank you guys, cool. All right, so as we talk about the other second piece of our framework, adult brain state, like, we're kind of a big deal, the adults, right? Because emotions are contagious, right? We know this through yawns. Think about it. If I were to yawn right now, we always tease when we have our thriving team meetings, like, you can't be tired, Janeen, you can't be tired. Well, actually, it's usually me yawning, let's be honest. They're like, stop it, because I'm catching it, right? But emotions are contagious. They did this wild research study where they wanted to really see just how contagious were they in the classroom. So what they did was they went in and they collected saliva from 2nd through 6th graders, right? Which I would have just loved to have been the research assistant that got that job, right? Like, hey kids, can you just go ahead and spit in the cup for me? Like, it would just been wild. But why do you think they would be collecting spit from elementary school students? You can go ahead in the box if you want to, take your guess at it. Why are they collecting spit from little people? Renee, dang girl, you're on it. Yes. Oh, Lorraine, Cherie, I'm sorry if I'm saying names wrong, but you guys, yes. The cortisol levels, you're so right, Jeanette, yes. Or ideas, cortisol, which is our stress hormone, if we had the right mechanisms, we could measure it at any given time. So what they found is they had teachers take a survey to just quantify how stressed they felt. And then they compared that to the cortisol in their students. And so you can see where this is going. The teachers that had reported higher levels of stress, collectively, their students had higher levels of cortisol. Teachers who had reported lower levels of stress, students collectively had lower levels of cortisol. Now, don't get me wrong. It's kind of like chicken or the egg, what came first? Maybe it's that year where you have that group of kids, that mixture is just kind of wild, right? Or a lot of kids who have just a lot going on, have really stressful things in their lives. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's the year that you have a lot going on. You're caring for somebody who is sick. You have to take care of kids while you have to teach, right? The reality is a lot is going to be being asked of us, and it is a stressful time. No one's negating that. But I don't think the question is who's more stressed out, the kids or you? The question is, how do we make it so that we have adults that are thriving and students that are thriving in a difficult time? And so just some things to think about. If we know brains in pain can't learn, which means they can't teach the best way possible, they can't parent in the way they want to, they can't lead in the best way possible, we need to be really intentional about the climate that we're creating and give ourselves actually a lot of grace. We're actually going to do a little exercise in a moment because we're not expected to be robots. Please do not take away from this like, Jessie's trying to tell you to stifle your emotions. Not it at all. I think we need to name it to tame it. I think we need to take some focused attention breaths to just be in the moment. I think we need to tell ourselves we're all part of a very hard thing and to recognize the shared humanity of that. And it's okay if we don't feel great, right? But to understand that we create the climate and our emotions spread out. So I've come to a frightening conclusion that I'm the decisive element in the room I'm in. It's my personal approach that creates the climate. It's my daily mood that makes the weather. At any time, I possess a tremendous power to make another person's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture, or I can be an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated and another person humanized or dehumanized, right? So the question is, how do we want to show up for ourselves, for our quarantine, whoever we live with, for our students, for our colleagues, right? And my encouragement, what I've really been thinking about, I'm sure you've heard this before, but it's a good reminder for me right now. Be a thermostat, not a thermometer, right? Keep a constant temperature. It's really easy right now for the external forces or the outside weather, so to speak, to dictate your internal landscape. But how can we be a steady, right, versus a up and down? We create the climate. It starts with us. Especially for little people. We know that they catch, right? When we're stressed, they're stressed. When little people are overwhelmed by big emotions, it is our job to share our calm, not join their chaos. Or the opposite can be true, right? Like I mean, just a few days ago, like my kids, were in there, they're like fighting over like who's like controlling like what show they watch, right? And I'm about to go in there and storm in there, like, be quiet, right? And then I realized like, girl, what are you spreading? Or every time I thought about that when I've taught, and don't get me wrong, many a times in the classroom, I'm like, everybody just sit down, just be quiet, right? Especially early on. But then I think to myself, inevitably what happens when I say, everybody just sit down, be quiet, somebody else, another kid stands up and, yeah, everybody be quiet. And they're trying to have my back, right? Like they're trying to support me, but I have to tell them like, no, that's not what I meant. But I'm like, oh, they're just modeling my behavior. Right? They're just catching what I put out. And so really it's important that we talk about social emotional learning. S.E.A.L starts with the adults, right? Our ability to recognize our own emotions, to be aware of what we're feeling. Again, not to deny them, but to recognize, and I saw a kindergarten teacher do this beautifully. She was in a class and she was like, oh, I'm feeling a little, because the kids were loud. Oh, I'm feeling a little windy right now. It's really hard to concentrate with all this noise. How do you guys think I should calm down? I was like, brilliant. She just modeled for them. She told them very honestly, like, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm windy, right? Is the word she used. How can we deal with this, right? Some quick focus attention practices, especially for littles, some fun ones. If you can include movement in them, it's great. But one of my favorites is the Spider-Man breath. If you want to pull your webs in with me, you can, but you pull your webs in and then shoot them out. Pull them in, shoot them out. Or all the cool downs, right? Smell the pizza, cool it down. Or smell the soup, cool it down. Smell the hot chocolate, cool it down. Tons of animal breaths, right? Calm like a bunny, like, right? All these little, if you just type up mindful breathing animals, there's mindful tracing. This is kind of cool. you trace a shape. This is another great one. It's called starfish, or take 5. Use inhale, go up one side, exhale, go down one side. Inhale, up one side, exhale, down. I do that one in my, like when I'm driving sometimes, just like to calm down. So just a lot of great things to bring you in the moment. Because it's really important that we remain rooted, because the world around us is pretty chaotic right now. So questions I ask myself often. When a student or colleague isn't showing up in a way, let's be honest, the way I think they should show up, I ask myself, what might have happened to this person that this person's saying or doing what they're saying or doing, or not saying or doing, right? That's some social awareness on my part. And then what is it within me that's so impacted? Or especially, why am I okay with one student coming in a little late, but I'm not okay with another student? Like, what is it within me that's bothered when this kid does it and I'm not bothered when this kid does it, right? Or I'm okay when this colleague does it, but not okay when this colleague does it, right? Or what is in my control? There's so much that's not in our control. So what is in my control? Because if we spend our energy on what's not in our control, it's going to drive us crazy. So what is in my control to co-create a more positive outcome with my students or colleagues, right? Is there another way? And then how would I talk to a friend in this situation, right? I hear a lot of teachers that are like being very tough on themselves. Like, I'm not equipped for this. I'm not going to be any good at it. And then I think to myself, if you went and talked to anybody else, especially like outside of education, who's like a caring, compassionate person, and you said, I'm not going to be any good at this. Or if they came to you and said that to you, they said, I'm not going to be any good at this. It's my first time doing this. What would they say to you? They would say, my gosh, it's amazing that you're even trying, that you're even attempting it, right? But sometimes we're really hard on ourselves. So we're going to do a quick, what I call micro mindful moments, right? We're going to give ourselves some grace. So you're just going to follow along. So sorry about that, team. Got a lot of alarms that I set for myself. I don't trust my memory. So we're going to do an inhale, and we're going to say, breathing in, I do my best. Breathing out, I let go of the rest. Okay, so you can follow along with me if you want to get in a comfortable seated or standing position. Close your eyes if you'd like. Breathing in, inhale, I do my best. Breathing out, exhale, I let go of the rest. Let's do that one more time. Breathing in, I do my best. Breathing out, I let go of the rest. I say this to myself a lot. I use this with my kids too, with my students. I have an AP friend who uses it before tests. One other thing I think to be able to recognize is that we carry automatic negative thoughts with us, little ants, right? And they come in all different species, right? Some can be, here's the different forms of ants that we might carry. We compare ourselves. Oh, that teacher's doing such a better job preparing lessons. Their lessons are so much more dynamic or engaging. That person's so much more smart. That person's better at technology, right? Or all or nothing. Kids might say, I always get a bad grade, or I never win, or like all or nothing. As adults might be like, I just don't ever get this right. It always takes me a really long time to learn, right? We should on ourselves. My friends, may I encourage you, we don't want to should on ourselves. I have to be careful when I say that, because I've got a lisp. So shoulding on ourselves is never a good thing, right? I should have known the answer. I should be doing better. I shouldn't feel this way. I should be handling my emotions better right now. Shoulding never helps us either, right? Essentially what we're doing when these ants go marching is we're activating that stress response, right? So just becoming aware of that is a big first step. Like I just say it, name it, tame it. Oh, I'm having an ant right now. I'm comparing. And comparison's the thief of joy. Comparison is my big ant. I compare a lot, like to professionally as a mom, like, oh my gosh, every mom is doing so much better. Look at that. Look what they're doing to get their kids set up for remote learning. I compare. So just being aware of that. Here's how it might show up professionally. Here might be some buttons that we might have, students not logging into remote learning, students being late, students always talking. So the encouragement would be, how can we get curious rather than furious? How can we get curious about some of our ants? Some of us are like, well, I just want to get rid of my ants. Hot tip, you're never going to get rid of your ants. You're not bad for thinking it. Thoughts are like bubbles. They're just going to pop up. We're not responsible for regulating the thoughts we have. We are responsible for what we do with those thoughts, right? So sometimes I just have to bring myself in the moment when I'm really caught up in a thought I can't get away from. It's one of my favorite exercises. It's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So what I do is I just look for 5 things I can see. I do this with my kids all the time too. It works well with littles. So 5 things I can see: a picture frame, a book, a candle, my lamp, and a blanket, right? 4 things you can feel. I encourage you, if you want to do this right now, you could do it too. You can feel my chair. I can feel my shirt. I can feel the floor beneath me. I can feel my desk. 3 things I can hear. I can hear a lawnmower off in the distance. I can hear some birds. I can hear my kids laughing with my hubby right now. 2 things you can smell. fresh air, and a little bit of my detergent. And then one thing you could taste, a little coffee I just had when I was in my breakout room, right? So it just brings you into the moment, right? Oftentimes what gets us tripped up with anxiety is we spend so much time thinking and worrying about the future, or we ruminate on the past. Focused attention practices or mindfulness just bring you into the present moment. It makes you be where your feet are. It's a great way we'd like to explain mindfulness to our kids. It's just putting you where your feet are, right? Lots of great free mindfulness apps. Headspace is awesome. The Calm app is great. Stop, Breathe, and Think is another good one. I really like Headspace. I believe they're still giving away to educators for free right now, so something to look into. And I say this as somebody who's a busy person, you guys. At first I thought mindfulness was very silly, but I use it all the time now. So big idea, students will remember who we were and how we showed up during this time, especially during this time. They're gonna remember how we showed up, right? We have to bring our best selves. So in closing, my friends, I want to show us or remind us of the benefits of what happens when we do show up as our best selves, okay? I'm gonna make sure, I'm gonna stop share for one moment, my friends, just because I wanna make sure when I share this, the audio is good. And I have to select share computer sound, hot tip on Zoom if you're ever presenting. And let's turn it over to our wonderful students who are gonna say it better than I could.
Every morning's kind of the same for people our age. You wake up, you brush your teeth, you know you're going to school. But then I go to her class, and once you have something happy and something good and inspiring that day, you kind of hold on to it for the rest of the day. Miss Rivera is my social studies teacher. She's probably the best teacher I've ever had. Miss Rivera knows nothing. She thinks it's just gonna be a little interview. Then we're gonna come in, surprise her with the cookies and the little sign, and then we're gonna read her all our letters that we wrote about why she's such an amazing teacher. I think it's important to take your time and say thank you to people who have had such an impact on you, because if you don't, then they'll never truly know how much they mean to you. And I think it's important that they do. Give them a hug. Thank you, Miss Rivera, for making me smile when I feel like I can't. Thank you for being a person I can count on to make me happy. And finally, thank you for being yourself.
You encourage every student who is stuck, put down, or broken to keep on moving forward. You see a future in every single one of your students, and we all thank you for that.
You create an atmosphere in your classroom that everyone matters and everyone has a voice.
You have opened doors for so many people that didn't even know those doors existed. You are our biggest fan and our best coach.
Every morning, knowing that I get to go to your class makes it easier to come to school. About a month ago, I got into a fight with a group of kids after school and before club because they were being homophobic. This ended with them mad and telling their friends and me crying. I was late to club, but you weren't mad at all. You asked me if I was okay and you comforted me. You made me feel safer and like I could trust you. Last year was a really hard year for me, but every Wednesday I knew that I had your club to look forward to. It also got easier as I made more friends through the club. There were people in the school that cared about me, and I never would have met them without you.
I remember at the beginning of the year you were talking about how great we were, and you started crying, and I thought, wow, she really loves us, and I'm so grateful, and you totally deserve this.
You guys, can I have a group hug? Is that okay? I love you guys.
I regularly tell my kids, believe in yourself, believe in your voice. You are capable of so much, and I will be your biggest cheerleader forever. There are no words to express how that made me feel. It just reminds me that every day is worth it, and this is what I was meant to do, and I think this is the place I was supposed to be.
Every morning.
I don't know about you, but my allergies just started kicking in right there. No, I loved what the kids said, right? What did they say? You create an atmosphere where everyone matters, right? And I think that's going to be it's going to be hard to do remotely, but I think we can rise to the occasion. I think we can do it, and I think it's possible. And so, as they say in the field of dreams, if you build it, they will come, right? We are the social architects. We create the space. We decide how we want to show up and how the kids feel. And one way we love to close out is, how do you change the world? One room at a time. Which room? The one you're in. Is it your office? Is it your kitchen? Is it your living room? Is it your classroom? Is it a Zoom room? Is it a Google Meets room? right? But wherever we're at, that's how we change it. So my friends, if you could, last word, if you could give us in the chat box either an affirmation, so something that you heard today that affirms what you think, believe to be true, an aha, something like a little bit of a little light went off, or an action you want to take. If you could in the chat box, we would love to hear your responses. Gina, I see you have the allergies too. Thanks, Gina. Who's cutting onions, Clara? I see you. Oh, you guys, you're a funny group. I love it. Yeah, thanks, Sabine. I think it's going to be okay. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. And maybe even I'll just take it for a moment if I feel okay in one moment. Because, you know, a couple minutes when I get an email, it's going to be like, again. But yeah, we'll take it in the moment, right? Yes, well, I want to thank you truly for joining. And again, I think there's so many things you could be doing right now. The fact that you prioritized this and took some time to be here, I cannot thank you enough. I think I've always been extremely proud to be an educator, but I have never been more proud than I am right now to be an educator and to watch and be inspired by so many fellow educators and what they're doing right now is just tremendous. So please do not be a stranger. We would love to keep in contact with you. My email is right there. And I mean that. I know people say that, but I really mean that. And plus, I'd love to learn from you. Quite honestly, I feel like I'm every day learning so much, and as teachers share. There's Joelle's email and Janeen's. We'd love for you to join us or to find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group if you'd like to continue to be in conversation with us. We share tons of resources. Joelle is especially great about sharing resources and articles on most recent things and what's going on. And so we'd love to see you there. And we'll give you a link to that group because it is a private group. We try to just keep it for the people that we've shared presentations with. So we can get in contact you that way with Colleen. But otherwise, thanks for being here. Enjoy the rest of the conference and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Jessie and Joelle and Janeen. Just before we go, I have a couple of little odds and ends for those of you who are registered for the full conference. Number one, some of you may know from colleagues, there was a little hiccup this morning with Zoom. And even though we have a 500 cap on our meetings, they capped it at 100. We've resolved it. So if you happen to have a colleague who was like, I couldn't get in, it's resolved. They'll be fine in the afternoon. So I just want you to know that, and please make sure they know that we are very sorry and we will do whatever we can to make it up to them. I want to remind you that we do have Work With Me Wednesdays coming up. This Wednesday, that's a chance for you to get one-on-one with some of the presenters and learn how you can apply some of the learning to your classrooms. So you should have received the email yesterday from me, but if you didn't, please let me know, and I will send you the link for that. I'm just trying to talk and pull up my screen at the same time, which is why I'm a little stumbling. So hold on one moment. Let me just pull up the rest of what I need to say to you. We do have a new teacher coaching program that starts soon. It's an 8-week program. It offers group coaching and online coaching for skills that you will need as we navigate this new world of, are we in person? Are we online? Are we going to do both? And Corey Coble, who is presenting this afternoon, is one of our coaches. So you can get a little sense of what his teaching style is like and what kind of information he's able to bring to the table. Pear Deck was our sponsor today. They were founded by educators on a mission to help teachers engage every student every day with solutions rooted in active learning and formative assessment. They make it easy for you to connect with learners of every age and ability. So I will put Jackie's information. She is the contact at Pear Deck. So if you want to know more, if you're not using it, it is a really, really great way to connect with students. And we appreciate them sponsoring our conference. And this afternoon, if you are signed up for the full conference or you a la carte selected Corey's session, you should have gotten links in your reminder emails for how to sign up. But if you haven't, you can email me and I will stick my email in the chat box. It is colleen@leagueofschools.org. Or if you just want to like pop in and say, hi, Colleen, I'll be happy to talk to you about anything. So again, thank you so much. We'll see most of you this afternoon at 2 o'clock for Corey Coble's session. And again, thank you, Jessie, Janeen, and Joelle, and to everyone for being here. You are amazing. And every time I sit in one of these sessions, it touches my heart and it just reaffirms how wonderful the educators in the state are. You will get information from today's presentation and the recording links at the end of the conference. So we'll make sure you get all of that information. So it will be available for you to access after this. So thank you. And I hope you all have a great day and we will see you later. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you, everyone. Have a great year.
Oh, I forgot to
Bye.
say.
Have a great year.
Survey.
Thank you. Same to you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for all the work that you do with kids.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Oh, she's
and adults who serve kids.
Yes. For all the work you do. Full stop.
Exactly. With your own children that you've produced.
Yeah.
That's right.
Those of us who are suddenly classroom teachers.
Right. I feel like I got my emergency multiple subject credential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank
Colleen,
you.
someone's asking if you can put the bit link in the chat.
Which bit link?
I think for the survey.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Thanks, Arlene. Thanks, Natasha. Thanks. Thank you, Rita. Bye, Mary. Bye, Brianna. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, John.
Bye, Clara, with your cool Bitmoji background. I love it.
I'm planning to have a dance party when they enter on the first day.
I love
it.
I
love it. Yes.
I'm playing music. Like I'm sharing my computer sound. That's what I'm going to do.
That's so cute. Oh, I love it. And what is it, first grade? Sorry, it's kind of small, but it's first grade?
Yeah.
Aw, so cool.
Fun.
Trying to build those connections. I'm trying to get parent buy-in.
Yeah, right. I hear you. What district do you teach at?
I teach at Moreno Valley.
Okay.
This is my second year, but I've been in education for a long time. It's just I finally found a position.
Gotcha. Yeah. So not your first rodeo.
Yeah. And then I got my master's in educational technology, so I'm like pulling out all the guns.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, then perfect. Yeah. I was gonna say you're gonna fare pretty well on the technology side.
I'm just scared for the parents. I don't want to overwhelm them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Hey Jessie, I have a question if you could.
Sure.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Hi. I'm trying to find out how can I set up a breakout room. Is that a breakout with Zoom? Because I use Google Meet.
Can't do it.
Yeah, Google Meet doesn't have breakout rooms.
It's Zoom has the breakout?
Exactly.
Zoom meeting.
Your district allow you to use Zoom? Because I know, well, do they, is that okay to use Zoom in your district?
Oh yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I just find that the kids find it really easy to click on because I put it in Google Classroom.
Right, Google Classroom, yes.
And it's a link and they don't have to do anything. So, because that's the biggest problem. I teach high school science is getting them on, all the stuff you talked about, that's totally second nature to me. Distance is, I mean, even personal phone calls doesn't get them to log on a regular basis. That's the big hurdle. That's the big hurdle.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I saw someone just posted, and I didn't click. I'm sorry, so I didn't click on the link. I just saw someone literally yesterday in our a teacher group I'm a part of say that same thing. Like in Google Meets, is there any way to do it? And people were saying no, but there was a link that you could. I thought someone was saying they were playing with a link that maybe you could embed in Google Meets to kind of it's a workaround. But I mean, I've just found, because I use Google Classroom too, I just put my Zoom link on my stream. you know? So it is, I mean, it's an extra step because they have to click on it and it goes out to Zoom, but they didn't really have any trouble with it.
Because we for our staff meetings, we use Zoom.
Okay.
You know, so in our district, we use Zoom. It's just I was lazy because I went to a Google Meet and it's like, oh, this is easy.
No, I'm totally with you. I know. I really wish, I imagine a lot of people are giving Google feedback too on that in the same way they're telling Zoom how to even make their breakout rooms better. I imagine there's got to be a lot of feedback through Google saying, hey, because that's my only big, because I'm with you. It's so nice you use that whole Google like suite, like interface. But you can just do a few more things in Zoom.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much. I'll see you guys this afternoon.
Thanks, Alan, for coming.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Is that everybody? Anyone else have?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
I know that we received an email saying that I think it was a confirmation email that said that we had to follow one more step to make sure that we were attending or registered.
Mm-hmm.
And once I clicked for the session this morning, that means that I'm automatically, because I'm already registered. I just want to know if there's another step I have to follow before I take my session in the afternoon, and I don't want to be dealing with it.
The links for each of those sessions you need to click on. It's one of those little glitches that we have with Zoom where we can register through S.E.A.L, but then we can't wholesale. We used to be able to wholesale register everyone for meetings, but now because of the security issues, you have to just click that. All you have to do is you put in your name and your email. Like you did for this, but you'll have to do it for all of the sessions you're registered for.
Right. I tried to do the second for the second session, which is today at 2, and it didn't allow me for some reason.
Okay.
So I was just thinking maybe if I do it once, it registers me for both, but then it does have to be individually, right?
It didn't. Yeah. So here I'm gonna paste the link in the chat for this afternoon's. So you should be able to click on that, or you can email me directly and I will send it to you if you can't access the chat right now.
Give me 1 second. Oh, I have your email. I already have it. So I'm going to try it again, and if it doesn't work, I'll just email you because I don't want to, be 5 minutes before the session and be stuck not being able to sign in or log in.
Yeah, and you should be able to sign in no matter what. We fixed the issue this morning that wasn't letting people sign in past 100.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
They like their own meeting?
I was wondering if you knew that on